I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're talking to a terrific author. His name is Gershon Siegel. He is celebrated for his wit and insight, and he brings readers the Ten Commandments Reboot, a sharp, humorous, and deeply thoughtful update on ancient moral codes for today's chaotic world. A veteran journalist, publisher, and satirist, Siegel's writing cuts through the noise with humor, heart, challenging readers to rethink the spiritual blueprints that guide humanity. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Gershon, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Nice to be here, Logan. Nice to be here.
What made you decide to reimagine the Ten Commandments? I imagine right now Charlton Heston is shaking in his grave, thinking that you might approach his sacred scroll and tablets.
Well, before I answer that, let me say that I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a Reformed Jew and a Methodist?
I do not.
It's the amount of mayonnaise they put in their egg salad. So I tell this story to assure your audience that although I just released a book entitled The Ten Commandments Reboot, I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, a religious fanatic.
Okay.
In fact, 30 years ago, I wrote and published a book called Paradigms Lost.
Mhm.
Its theme proposes that the more beliefs one holds as inseparable from self, the more identified, the more weighted down, the more limited, enslaved, and insane one is. When
Yep.
one holds a belief as inseparable from oneself, one is willing to put one's life at risk, your own, someone else's. If that's not insane, what is?
Agreed. Agreed.
I wrote the Ten Commandments Reboot as a tongue-in-cheek depiction of heaven, modeled as a vast interplanetary corporation where God is the CEO, Supreme Archangel Beelzebub is the CFO, and all the lesser archangels are board of directors members. The reader gets to sit in on the meetings, hearing the arguments and debating being made about how best to handle the failing humankind experiment on Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And I have to say that the book has a threefold purpose, if you will. First, it is an apology to humanity from heaven for heaven's own lack of foresight in not giving Homo sapiens enough divine guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, in republishing the full and updated version of the commandments before they were heavily edited and redacted by Moses, heaven is now attempting to make amends to humanity for not being more hands-on with the Mother Earth's humankind project.
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly, in making available to humanity for the first time, not only the 5 lost commandments, but additionally, humanity's quick setup guide, heaven is crossing its collective fingers that, with a more complete picture of their collective destiny, the people of Mother Earth will manage to pull itself away from its most current eve of destruction.
Wonderful, wonderful. You mentioned in the book that the Ten Commandments actually began as 15 suggestions, right?
Yes, they were 15 suggestions. That's what we wanted to call them. Moses didn't like the word suggestions. He felt it had to be it had to be commandments, but God knew that wasn't going to be swallowed easily because no one likes to be told what to do. I'd like to have reasons,
Exactly.
Why am I being asked to do this? Well, okay, it's because thus and such. Okay, just tell me to do something. Oh my God, come on now.
Exactly. You introduce us to the five bonus commandments as well. Why be limited to 10 after all? Could you
Right.
share one you think that is most urgently needed today, one of the bonus commandments?
Well, I would say the 15th one is, which is always be kind.
Mhm.
Kindness is just essential. And I mean, the Dalai Lama, who incidentally was one of God's messengers, said, "Kindness is my religion." And he said, one should always be kind. One should always try to be kind. And the fact of the matter is, you can always be kind.
Yeah,
There's, that's the way.
exactly. And not enough kindness in this world for sure. What role do you believe late stage predatory capitalism has played in the distortion of spiritual principles?
Well, the profit motive has made it so that all our uh, relations are transactional. I
Mhm.
mean, even between a son and a mother. I mean, there's nothing that's not transactional anymore. So how am I going to profit? How am I going to profit? Because that's we put that on top of everything.
Exactly. How are we going
So
to
what's in it?
monetize it?
What's in it for
Monetize,
me?
yeah.
What's in it for me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everything today, every idea, every transaction, every interaction. Well, how do I monetize this? That's the new buzzword, instead of what's in it for, but basically it's saying what's in it for me.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Exactly.
Tell us about how your work at publications like Santa Fe Spirit and Sun Monthly influenced the voice and the tone of this work.
Well, actually, it started in high school. I was um, I was pulled out of obscurity by a brand new journalism teacher. She just got the guy had the journalism teacher in my high school had been there for like 30 years. He retired. They had to get somebody quick. They got this brand new college graduate from San Jose. She came to Steubenville, Ohio, and
Mhm.
began to teach journalism in my high school. And I don't know, maybe she just thought it was time for Steubenville to get shaken up a little bit, and she
Mhm.
allowed me to be one of the editors on on the paper, and she allowed me to have a little column every week. And that column, I've seemed to be drawn to mockery, if you will. I guess
Yeah.
that's what my late brother said. You're a mocker, and he wasn't saying it in a particularly kind way. He was letting me know that I should be serious about some things. But I'm a believer that one should be laughing, and if you're not laughing, you should be waiting for the
To
next
laugh.
laugh.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, it's a good way to live your life, waiting for the next laugh. In fact, that's your next book. I think you can entitle it Waiting for the Next Laugh. I think that's great, without a doubt.
Well, actually, it's not. But my next book is in progress. But let's talk about this book. This
Okay.
is the one we're
Well,
really.
we'll talk about the other book at the end of the interview, but let's talk about this book now, like you said. Is there a particular commandment, original or new, that you either find most challenging to live by or most important and vital to this planet?
Well, the first commandment, which is that thou shalt have no other gods before me, right?
Mhm.
And we think of it in terms of there were lots of gods out there, and there were people making a living making idols in stone and wood and so forth. And it confused people. People felt like they were trying to materialize the spiritual world. And in saying you have no other gods before me, what they were really trying to get to is we have made a god of our own egos.
Mhm.
And that's our first, that's what we believe we owe our allegiance to, our own personal egos.
Mhm.
And the first commandment was saying, no, no, that's not it at all. There is a higher purpose here. There is there is a divine, sacred guidance. And if you live according to that sacred guidance, you will flourish.
Hmm.
You don't have to worry about grabbing every little thing that comes by you. You don't have to worry about your next meal. It will be provided if you live according to sacred laws.
Hmm.
So there were
Wonderful.
lots of laws out there, and the Ten Commandments became this amalgamation of what was kind of being worked with, that seemed to have something to say to humanity. And well, let's face it,
Hmm.
they served pretty well for, even those little truncated words. 10 sentences were the basis of Western civilization. It worked pretty
Yeah.
well for a while until they became ignored.
Exactly, exactly. I also think it's interesting that the Ten Commandments are pretty much the cornerstone of every major religion, either officially or unofficially.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
who's to argue with anything in there, right?
Right. You would
Yeah.
think. You would
Yeah.
think. But the people that was given to, unfortunately, supposedly out of the Hebraic tradition, they've now turned into the perpetrators.
Hmm.
They were perpetrated upon, they were the victims, and now they're turning around and doing the same thing to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oy, as my mother would say.
Exactly. To use a little Yiddish there, no doubt. What do you hope readers feel or think about differently after finishing the Ten Commandments reboot?
Well, what do I think they? I think they need to make a priority, with their spirit selves, and and as I would say, that's what they're basically telling us. Listen to the divine guidance. It's there. It's whispering constantly. We know what the right things to do are.
Mhm.
Why are we ignoring that?
Mhm.
So I'm trying to grab people's attention. Um, I want people to look inside themselves and listen to that still small voice. And this is not brain surgery.
Mhm.
This is we've lived with these laws. We know they're valid. So let's take them up again. And if you have to read about them with, and it's like when I write humorously because it's like the sugar with the medicine.
Mhm.
So I'm giving you a little laugh, but at the same time I'm being quite serious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very, very effective. That's the way people take their information best. I think with a little levity, but with a pointedness to it as well. You mentioned it before, your next work. What are you working on now?
Well, one of the things that I studied, in my esoteric studies, which I have for 45 years or more, been interested in esoterica.
Hmm.
Uh, I got a hold of the Enneagram.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram or not.
You tell me a little more, and maybe I'll pick up on it.
Well, it is a symbol, a nine-pointed symbol. It became very popular about 40, 50 years ago.
Hmm.
And once again, the West got a hold of it, but it came out of the Middle East. It's a
Hmm.
symbol. It's probably 1,500 years old or older, and it was made for a certain purpose to help people self-perfect themselves, to work on themselves, to become better humans. And it's kind of been trivialized, um, and I'm trying to reestablish, um, the potential that's there. A lot of people are doing very good work with it. If you plug into Amazon, Enneagram, Enneagram, there's probably 3,000 books out there. So why do
Wow.
we need another Enneagram book? Well, um, I feel like I have a unique take on it, and I'd like to share that with people.
Wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to that because we truly enjoyed this book. This book we've been focusing on today is called The Ten Commandments Reboot. It is a sharp, humorous, and deeply thoughtful update on the ancient moral codes for today's chaotic world. It's written by a terrific author. He's a journalist, a publisher, and a satirist. And his writing cuts through the noise with humor, heart, challenging readers to rethink the spiritual blueprints that guide humanity. In this daring reboot, he reimagines God's original intentions, inviting us to embrace joy, consciousness, and connection in an era teetering on the edge. Gershon, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Namaste, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us here today as
Namaste,
well.
bitches, as they say.
Exactly, exactly. I appreciate your time, your wit, your wisdom, and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.